AP Poetry Portfolio Project by George McFarland. So, introduction. The purpose of this presentation is to understand all that is in Emily Dickinson's I'm Nobody, Who Are You? And Edgar Allan Poe's The Haunted Palace, whether that be the use of symbols or multiple literary devices. Also looking at two literary criticisms and how their theories apply to the poems. So starting with Emily Dickinson's I'm Nobody, Who Are You? This poem is structured irregularly, and what I mean by that is that certain lines rhyme, but the rhyme scheme is not continuous throughout the whole poem. As you can see from the poem on the right, the first two lines rhyme whereas the second two don't, and in the second stanza, the second and fourth lines rhyme whereas the first and third don't. It's irregular for poetry and makes this poem unique. The themes of anonymity and privacy are very prevalent throughout the poem, as it's obvious just by reading that Dickinson values her privacy and doesn't want to be viewed as the same kind of public figure as many of the public figures at the time. By saying, quote, how dreary to be somebody, how public like a frog, she makes it clear that she doesn't want to be someone who is viewed and criticized on a daily basis. Also, earlier in the poem when she says, quote, don't tell, they advertise, you know, shows that she doesn't want to be used as an advertising tool, whether that be herself being advertised or things being advertised alongside her. Several literary devices are used in this poem as well. Metaphors are seen when she says, quote, I'm nobody, who are you? How dreary to be somebody, how public like a frog, which shows Dickinson conveying her disdain for societal expectations. The frog metaphor adds to it as it portrays a public figure's life as noisy and attention-grabbing, and that they like their anonymity, and that she likes her anonymity as previously stated. Imagery is present in the second stanza when she says, quote, to tell one's name, the livelong June, to an admiring bog, which highlights the poor nature of public interest and conveys the idea that living in the spotlight, constantly known by the public, is a horrible life to live that she hates the idea of. Alliteration is also present when she says, quote, then there's a pair of us, end quote, to tell one's name, the livelong June, adds a rhythmic quality to the poem that makes it more memorable as a whole. So in terms of literary criticism, we have Cleth Brooks' idea of new criticism, which was his belief that the meaning of a poem should be derived from the text itself without having to go to external sources such as the authors themselves. This applies to I'm Nobody, Who Are You? By the fact that you can derive so much of the meaning without having to look elsewhere. The text is very straightforward with its meaning and displays Dickinson's feelings towards the idea of living in the public eye. By saying, quote, I'm nobody, who are you? In the first line, repeating the poem's title, reinforces the idea that Dickinson doesn't like the idea of being known and would rather be left alone by those who do not know her. So moving on to The Haunted Palace by Edgar Allan Poe, this poem follows close to an A-B-A-B-C-D-C-D rhyme scheme, which has the stanzas breaking into two parts for what words rhyme with each other. It was written in the Gothic era, which is present through themes of decay and corruption scattered throughout the poem. Decay is shown when the speaker says, quote, is but a dim remembered story of the old time entombed, a hideous throng rush out forever and laugh but smile no more. In the last stanza, showing that everything ends at some point and decaying is natural when something isn't kept up to snuff by others around it. Corruption is prominent in the fifth stanza when it says, quote, but evil things in robes of sorrow assailed by the monarch's high estate, which suggests that an evil force ruined the castle and its ruler, leaving it to decay and be lost to time. Literary devices such as personification and imagery are present in the poem as they help propel the message of the poem. Personification is shown several times throughout the poem as the palace is given human-like qualities, specifically when the palace is said to have, quote, reared its head in the first stanza, as well as in the fifth stanza, where evil is described as wearing, quote, robes of sorrow assailed through the monarch's high estate, giving those elements a sense of agency and adds to the eerie atmosphere of the poem. Imagery is shown throughout the poem, but a specific example comes from the second stanza as it says, quote, banners of yellow, glorious golden on its roof, which gives us a good understanding of what the inside of the palace looks like. So T.S. Eliot's theory of impersonality, which argues that poets should detach themselves from their experiences and emotions and instead be objective in their writing, can be applied to The Haunted Palace. It can be applied as an allegory for the decaying human mind, as the palace, which was once magnificent, now stands as a rotting symbol of corruption. The crumbling palace serves as a representation of internal decline as the aging palace breaks and is no longer the beautiful palace it once was, relating to humans in that sense. In conclusion, both poems discussed hold meaning in them that only comes out once properly dissected. Their style and use of figurative language gives them a lot more substance than many would initially notice. The literary criticisms for each poem help show others' opinions and enhance our own by including others while creating them. My understanding of poetry has also increased, as now I can appreciate what went into creating the poems and poems I made it read in the future. I've also gotten better at analyzing poetry and figuring out the true meaning or lessons that can come out of poems, even one as short as 2 stanzas. Thank you for your time, and goodbye.